Hey, this is Middle-Aged Nerd Seeks Genre. I'm Cody. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're talking about Hollywood horror. I've got 3 releases for you that all focus on Hollywood-connected stories and are filled with some really great scares. So let's dive right in. First up is a book I'm really excited about. It's a very recent release. It's Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. Now, this is Danforth's first adult book, and it is one hell of a debut for adult fiction. So, Plain Bad Heroines tells essentially 2 stories. The first of them is a story that takes place at the turn of the 20th century, at an all-girls school called Brookhaunts, and there is a string of suspicious deaths that happen among the faculty and the student body at Brookhaunts. The turn of the century story explores the lives of all of the people surrounding these mysterious deaths. Teachers at the school, the girls involved themselves, and the general world of Brookhaunts, which is filled with unfortunate events that have occurred throughout sort of his lifetime. The other story is a contemporary one. It's a Hollywood story that takes place in the present, and a film crew, a director and a big Hollywood star whose name is Harper Harper, are signed on to create a film version of a book that explores those deaths at Brookhaunts that the past story is telling. The writer of the book is involved in the process, and they're on the hunt for a young actress, a fresh young actress, to play one of the leads in the film. So Plain Bad Heroines balances these 2 core narratives throughout the course of the book, telling a mysterious story of unexpected and possibly supernatural things that are happening in the past, and this present story about this film crew attempting to tell that story in a different medium and the challenges they face, along with some supernatural occurrences that may connect these 2 worlds. Saying any more really would spoil the absolute joy that you get by discovering Plain Bad Heroines. Danforth creates amazing surprises for you all along the way. Things that are creepy, things that are funny, things that are like incredibly satirical about contemporary Hollywood. And it's just an absolute delight of a book. What I really liked about Plain Bad Heroines was Danforth's writing style. Narratively, she creates this arch narrative voice that sort of like, the way I sort of described it, it's like if an Edward Gorey painting was a narrative voice, you'd get the voice of Plain Bad Heroines. The book is filled with interesting footnotes as though it's sort of a document, like a nonfiction document. The footnotes are hilarious and wonderful. They're mysterious too. And you can really tell that Danforth loves this world that she's created. The other thing I really loved about Plain Bad Heroines were the characters. These women, and it's important to note that like all of the characters in the major characters in Plain Bad Heroines are women, and they're queer women too. And these women are beautifully drawn. They're rich and resilient and fully fleshed out. Their relationships are complicated and funny and touching and frustrating. They are placed in these weird scenarios in both of these time frames, and the characters are so richly drawn. I was happy to spend the over 600 pages of the book with these women. What I think is really neat about Plain Bad Heroines is you get a spooky story, yes. It's sort of the supernatural ghost story, kind of a curse story, basically. But you also get what I think is a very smart narrative about stories, and who gets left out of them, who is erased from narratives, and how do those people that find themselves outside of narratives make their way into them. And it's about the mutability of stories, their flexibility, their ability to transform and change, and haunt us, quite honestly, no matter what form they take. I would say that Plain Bad Heroines is one of my favorite novels of the year. I am a sort of slow reader for the most part, but I devoured this book. I couldn't put it down. It was the kind of book that I just couldn't wait to get back to. I would highly recommend Plain Bad Heroines to anyone who's looking for maybe an entryway into horror. I mean, this isn't sort of your slasher or like really dark, difficult horror novel. This one is sort of a nice entryway, a supernatural way into horror. But if you're just looking for a really great tale with a very fun narrative voice with richly created characters and a spooky world. Big recommends to Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. So another book you may want to pick up if you're into Hollywood horror is a new anthology called Final Cuts. It's edited by Ellen Datlow, who is legendary in horror for creating anthologies and editing some of the best fiction in the genre. And what she's done is solicited brand new stories about Hollywood horrors from all of your sort of favorites. You're looking at folks like Stephen Graham Jones, A.C. Wise, Josh Mallerman. You're looking at John Langan, Laird Barron, Christopher Golden. I always really dig an Ellen Datlow anthology. I mean, you can't go wrong. She's got incredible taste in stories. And this anthology does not disappoint. It is filled with fantastic stories. A personal favorite is John Langan's story, where terrible things happen to horror writer Paul Tremblay. It's just a delightful story. But they're all great. And if you want these sort of small bites of really great horror writers doing the thing they do best, telling stories around Hollywood and movie making, Final Cuts is the anthology for you. So check it out. Another book to recommend if you are into Hollywood horror is The Remaking by Clay McLeod Chapman. So this book has a lot of interesting similarities to Plain Bad Heroines in the kind of multiple timeline and multiple versions of a story structure. So in The Remaking, you begin with what is a true story. A woman and her daughter are accused of witchcraft, and something terrible happens to them because of this accusation of witchcraft. And that story becomes the foundation for the rest of the book. Across several sections, that story is transformed in different ways. It's seen again as an urban legend. So this real thing that happened is now told as an urban legend that nobody really believes really happened. That's just a story around a campfire. And then that becomes a film, a horror movie in the 70s. And that becomes a podcast. And this story of these two women, this mother and daughter, and this thing that happened to them, transforms and mutates across the decades. And you're seeing what happens when a story transforms over time. I really, really liked The Remaking. It's an interestingly told story. The Chapman approaches the telling of the story. It's almost like an incantation. Like you can really imagine this book being spoken to you across a campfire, or like in a dark room with a flashlight under your chin. And it's incredibly clever. I really loved the way Chapman took the story and changed it over time and grew it. And it's creepy and unsettling, and the prose is lovely, and it's just a really wonderful read. The Remaking is recently out in paperback, so if you have missed it, this is a great time to pick it up. It's a book that I've recommended to a ton of people. It's one that I like a lot, and it's a really good book to add to your stack if you're into Hollywood horror. So as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me and supporting the channel. If you like what's going on, please subscribe, drop a comment, like the video, click the bell. Let's interact. I really love talking to other book lovers, especially genre fans as well. So, let's connect. Let's talk about books. It's why I'm here. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. I'm having a really good time on BookTube, so see you in the next one. Bye.